Every Western you grew up watching lied to you about the guns. Cowboys firing 20 rounds from a six-shooter without reloading, hitting targets at 50 yards with a snub-nose revolver, fanning hammers like it was full auto. None of those guns ever worked that way, and here are 10 that got completely misrepresented. This video examines firearms strictly as historical movie props and within a film analysis context. It is not about real-world use, tactics, or instruction. If you notice when movies nail the details or completely miss them, this is the kind of channel to subscribe to. Let us get into it, starting with number 10. Number 10. The Derringer pistol. Think of Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday in Tombstone. He whips out that tiny double-barreled .41 caliber pocket gun and drops a man across the room like he is firing something 10 times its size. Saloon scenes love this moment. The gambler pulls a Derringer from a boot or a vest sleeve and lands a perfect kill at 20 feet. Here is the lie. The actual Derringer was a 1 or 2 shot hideout piece designed for point-blank range, 3 to 10 yards at the most. The barrel was often under 3 inches with crude or non-existent rifling, so the bullet tumbled almost immediately. Black powder loads pushed those rounds to maybe 600 to 800 feet per second, enough to do serious damage at arm's length, but nothing close to the across-the-room kills you see in films. Real period accounts describe Derringers used in assassinations and barroom scuffles where the muzzle was practically touching the target. Reloading mid-fight was out of the question. You had to break it open, yank the spent casing by hand, and press a new round in. In a real confrontation, you fired your one shot and that was it. Every hidden Derringer save in the movies would have ended with the hero standing there holding an empty 2-inch gun while the other side shot back. But at least the Derringer actually existed the way they showed it. The next one is a logistics nightmare Hollywood pretends does not exist. Number 9. The Gatling gun. This is Hollywood's go-to doomsday weapon for villain hideouts and fort attacks. Films like The Wild Bunch and Young Guns roll out a Gatling and mow down entire groups in seconds. It plays as the unstoppable machine gun of the Old West. The real Gatling was a hand-cranked multi-barrel weapon patented in 1861. It could cycle 200 to 600 rounds per minute depending on the model and operator. That sounds terrifying, and it was on paper. In practice, it needed a trained crew to feed ammunition from hoppers or belts and keep the mechanism oiled. The whole assembly weighed hundreds of pounds on a wheeled carriage. The U.S. Army deployed a small number at frontier posts and during some campaigns in the 1870s and 1880s, mostly as a psychological tool. There are no documented cases of outlaws or cowboys dragging one around for robberies or range wars. Black powder fouling caused constant jamming. Real frontier gunfights lasted seconds at close range. A Gatling would still be getting set up by the time the shooting was over. And speaking of guns that look incredible but fall apart in practice, number 8 is a legend built on a lie. Number 8. The Buntline Special. Tombstone gave this one a starring role. That extra long-barreled Colt revolver on Wyatt Earp's hip looks incredible on camera. 12 inches of barrel, the ultimate lawman's sidearm for precision shooting at long range. The entire legend traces back to a 1931 book by Stuart Lake, a semi-fictional biography of Earp. Colt's own manufacturing records show only a tiny handful of long-barreled single-action Army revolvers from that era, roughly 19 total, none confirmed as special gifts to Earp or anyone in Dodge City. Guns with 10 to 16-inch barrels did exist as custom orders, essentially pistol-length carbines for stagecoach guards. The .45 Colt round still dropped significantly past 50 to 75 yards from any handgun barrel. The real problem is the draw. That much barrel turned the holster into a trap. Clearing leather with a foot-long revolver was dramatically slower and more awkward than with a standard-length gun. Most historical accounts agree Earp carried standard barrel lengths for daily carry. The on-screen drama of that long barrel swinging up looks fantastic, which is exactly why it keeps showing up, even though carrying one would have been a serious liability in any real encounter. Number 7. The Henry 1860 repeating rifle. Civil War films and early frontier westerns love this one. 16 rounds of .44 Henry rimfire in a tubular magazine under the barrel. On screen, one man with a Henry holds off entire groups, lever cycling shot after shot with no pause. The Henry was genuinely revolutionary. 16 rounds fired as fast as the shooter could work, the lever gave an enormous volume advantage over single-shot rifles. The issue the movies skip is what happens after those 16 rounds. Reloading meant removing a follower from the front of the magazine tube and pushing cartridges in one at a time from the muzzle end. There was no side-loading gate like later Winchester designs. In any sustained fight, that reload turned the shooter into a sitting target for a minute or more. Black powder fouling built up quickly, and the .44 rimfire cartridge was relatively weak at around 1,100 feet per second. Effective accuracy stretched to maybe 150 to 200 yards with a skilled shooter, less in field conditions. Real soldiers and frontiersmen valued the Henry for short, intense engagements, the opposite of the drawn-out one-man army sequences on screen. Now we are into the top 6, and the gap between movie and reality gets bigger with every entry. Number 6. The Sharps 1874 rifle, the long-range legend. Films portray this single-shot breechloader as a plain sniper rifle, capable of dropping targets at 800 yards or more with one perfect squeeze. The Sharps was a powerful, well-built falling block action, chambered in heavy calibers like .45 to 70 or .50 to 90. There's a famous account of Billy Dixon striking a warrior at over 1,500 yards during the Battle of Adobe Walls in 1874. And that shot really happened. It also happened with a rested rifle, ideal conditions, a large target, and an element of luck that Dixon himself acknowledged. For most shooters, effective range on a man-sized target sat between 300 and 600 yards, and that required time, a stable rest, and calm conditions. The Sharps fired one round, then the shooter had to open the breech, extract the spent case, load a fresh cartridge, close the action, and recock. Black powder smoke from that big cartridge would hang in the air and block the view for the follow-up. Buffalo hunters used them from fixed positions for that reason, taking slow, methodical shots at stationary herds. Any movie scene where a character uses a Sharps in a running fight ignores the fundamental design of the weapon. Number 5. The Winchester Model 1873. The marketing called it the gun that won the West. John Wayne spins the liver in a dozen films, emptying the magazine from horseback at full gallop, hitting everything he aims at. The 1873 was a genuinely important design. Lever action, a side-loading gate that allowed topping off the magazine without fully unloading, and .44 to 40 caliber ammunition that matched many revolvers of the era. The tubular magazine held 12 to 15 rounds depending on barrel length. A practice shooter could fire 10 to 15 aimed rounds in about 15 to 20 seconds. The toggle link action worked, but it could get gummed up with black powder residue after 20 to 30 rounds. Accuracy was reliable to about 200 yards for a skilled shooter on solid ground, well short of the 300-plus yard mounted shots the movies show. Reloading through the side gate still required thumbing in rounds one at a time, and under stress and return fire, that process slowed down significantly. Every blazing horseback rifle scene skips the fouling, the limited effective range from a moving platform, and the moment when that magazine runs dry. Number 4. The Smith & Wesson Schofield revolver. Most audiences would never notice this one because films almost always default to the Colt. When the Schofield does appear, it gets treated as just another six-shooter. That is the opposite of reality. The Model 3 top brake design had a major advantage that changes the math of every movie reload scene. Breaking the barrel down activated a star extractor that popped all 6 spent casings out at once. Drop in 6 fresh rounds, snap it shut, done. Period tests and modern cowboy action shooting comparisons show the Schofield reloading 5 to 15 seconds, faster than a Colt Single Action Army. Some lawmen, including Wyatt Earp at various points, carried Smith & Wesson top brakes for that speed. The .45 Schofield cartridge was slightly shorter than the .45 Colt due to military standardization, and the top brake mechanism could be sensitive to dirt. Still, the reload advantage was significant and real. If movies showed this gun accurately, every lawman shootout would look noticeably different during the pauses between volleys. We are in the top 3 now. and these are the guns that got the most screen time and the most wrong. Number 3. The Colt 1860 Army Percussion Revolver. Cap and ball 6 guns show up constantly in Civil War-era westerns. Characters fire them like modern cartridge revolvers, blazing through 6 shots and getting right back into the action. The 1860 Army was a .44 caliber black powder revolver loaded with loose powder, a lead ball, and a percussion cap on each of the 6 chambers. Firing all 6 rounds went quickly enough. The reload is where movies abandon reality entirely. A full reload meant pouring powder into each chamber, seating a ball with the built-in rammer, and placing a fresh cap on each nipple. For a practiced user, that took 2 to 5 minutes. Some shooters carried spare preloaded cylinders that could be swapped in about 20 to 30 seconds, but that still required tools and free hands. Black powder smoke after 2 or 3 shots created a thick cloud that blocked everyone's line of sight. Fouling built up fast and could freeze the action. Any extended revolver duel set in the late 1860s is pure screen fiction. Real engagements with these guns were short, chaotic, and decided in the opening seconds. Number 2. The Remington 1875 Single Action Revolver. This one shows up as the workhorse alternative to the Colt, often in the hands of secondary characters or hired guns. On screen, it gets the same treatment as every other 6-shooter. Quick draws, smooth shooting, ready to go again in a blink. The 1875 was a solid frame cartridge revolver in .44-40 or .45 Colt, popular because it was tough and more affordable than the Colt Single Action Army. The reload process was essentially identical to the Colt, 1 round at a time through a loading gate using the ejector rod. No top break shortcut. Period users noted it was slightly less refined, with occasional extraction issues. Effective accuracy for an average shooter under stress sat around 25 yards, same as most single-action revolvers of the era. Each shot required manually cocking the hammer. Every film that shows this revolver as interchangeable with any other cowboy 6-gun is right about the look and completely wrong about the speed. After 6 rounds, the shooter was just as stuck in a long exposed reload as anyone carrying a Colt. And number 1, the biggest lie in Western cinema. The Colt Single Action Army, the Peacemaker. This is the gun. Every Western hero from John Wayne to Clint Eastwood to Kurt Russell carries one. On screen, it draws in a blur, fans for rapid fire, hits targets at impossible distances, and never seems to need reloading during an entire gunfight. The 1873 Single Action Army was a strong, reliable revolver in .45 Colt. It earned its reputation for durability and stopping power. Every single shot required the shooter to manually thumb the hammer back. Fanning, where the shooter holds the trigger and slaps the hammer with the offhand, was physically possible. Ed McGovern demonstrated it could be somewhat accurate in controlled conditions. In actual combat, fanning destroyed accuracy and wore out the gun's internals. Almost no professional gunfighter used the technique. Reloading meant opening the loading gate, half-cocking the hammer, and punching out each spent casing with the ejector rod, while rotating the cylinder by hand. A fast, calm expert could reload all 6 chambers in 15 to 25 seconds. Under adrenaline and shaking hands, that stretched to 30 to 60 seconds or more. Most experienced carriers loaded only 5 rounds, leaving the hammer down on an empty chamber for safety. Effective range for an average shooter under stress was about 20 to 30 yards. Fixed sights and a short sight radius made anything beyond that unreliable. The gunfight at the OK Corral saw roughly 30 shots fired in 30 seconds, at distances often under 20 feet, with plenty of misses despite the close range. If movies showed the real Peacemaker, every iconic duel would dissolve into short, frantic exchanges, followed by desperate scrambles for cover during long reloads through a haze of black powder smoke.